have no idea what the fuck.
Welcome to another episode of I Have No Idea What the Fuck, and today I'm going to be talking about um, this really ridiculous article by NPR about the OK symbol and how that's now racist. So if you actually search that on Google, you'll find it. And I think in the first sentence it says that this sign, the OK symbol of touching the tip of the index finger to the tip of the thumb, and then having the other three fingers pointing upward and spread apart a little bit, is it's been classified as a symbol of hate. Keyword being it has been classified as, or key phrase. And I'm like, who the fuck classified it? All right, so that should give you pause. It shouldn't put you in fear, but it should give you pause that now the NPR is saying that our loving Big Daddy state, our loving Big Daddy state has classified this for us to protect us from racism. It's being categorized as a symbol of hate. And for those of you that practice yoga, you'll recognize this as a mudra, which is a hand gesture. And mudras in yoga are, some people consider yoga to be satanic, but it's not. It's just been PR'd that way, so because yoga actually helps you center yourself and get in touch with your own spirit. It is a way, it's not the way, but it's definitely an effective way. And this mudra is used in yoga. It's a very ancient mudra, and it's called Gyan Mudra. It's the mudra of knowledge, meaning by using this mudra, if you're in touch with certain levels of yourself, certain unseen levels of your own self, of your own vibration, you are able to access higher levels of knowledge by doing this mudra. Now, not everybody's going to be able to do this because they don't understand what practicing yoga actually is or what it actually means. So the thing about it is, it's just bizarre. It's like now the media is taking this stance of Big Daddy State is now going to categorize things for you and tell you what they are, and just blatantly lie and make up stories as to what it is. Now, the truth of the matter is, mudras or hand positions can mean a lot of different things. It might be true that this gesture was used in white supremacist groups, but that is not the meaning of it. There are many different meanings for this hand gesture. It's like I use it all the time when I meditate. So it's like, am I a white supremacist all of a sudden because I'm in lotus position and I have the OK symbol on my resting on my leg? It's just making everybody extra paranoid for no reason. And it kind of momentarily infuriates me because it's just so stupid. It's literally like high school level, like level of like seriousness that this needs to be taken with, in my opinion, because the thing is, now that's not to say to take racism lightly or anything, but the truth of the matter is it's not racism that's taking over this country. It's like, as a matter of fact, it's like it's a symptom. It's like racism is really a symptom, and it's really not the most important uh, topic that's on the table right now. I know a lot of people will disagree with me, but it's not the most important topic that's on the table. What's happening is it's more divide and conquer bullshit by the powers that be, because even if even if the white supremacists came out in full force, they are not the be all and end all. There is a power above them that is absolutely adamant about controlling through divide and conquer the population of every country and continent in the world. And these people are on the highest levels of power, the highest levels of finance, the highest levels of industry, the highest levels of banking, the highest levels of business. And meaning these people you will never meet. These people meet in secret and decide where they want the world to go. This is not a far-fetched idea. When you have high influence, and this is going to lead into my other point about not getting overly obsessed with that. But when you're in a high level of influence, you don't you can't relate to the regular population anymore. You don't know what it is to struggle financially. You don't know what it is to, basically, that's it. You don't know what it is to struggle financially. And you have the whole world basically eating from your palm. If you're a toilet maker, if you make toilets all over the world, you're a billionaire. It's just what it is. Bottom line, point blank, zero, like ground zero. That's it. If you collect trash all over the world, you're a billionaire. It's just what it is. It's like people don't think that the motherfucker that runs the trash industry is a billionaire because nobody wants to fuck with trash. So it's like, yeah, I'll fuck with the trash. I'll take your trash if you pay me $100 billion a year. My business is $100 billion a year, and I'll walk away with 20 billion. I'm just pulling those figures out of my ass, but you know, that's that's pretty much how it works. And when you're at those high levels and you have the world eating from your palm, and the truth of the matter is, what you've done is you've used secret techniques in order to hypnotize, in order to make yourself seem more powerful than you actually are, so that people give you money, which is also a fake system, which isn't based on anything of actual worth or value, is based off of belief, and people give you hundreds of billions of that note, which aren't even in physical form anymore. They're just numbers on a computer screen. So it's one of the biggest cons. It's like different. It's like a lot of different cons coming all together. Now I know that I'm not really speaking coherently or in the best order. However, when you're at that level of influence and you're able to manipulate the population, I said hypnotize, but that just has a really weird connotation. But manipulation, if you're able to manipulate the population, even if you're doing a quote unquote service for the world, if you're able to manipulate the population into giving you billions of those, numbers on a screen, then you meet other people who have manipulated the population into giving them billions of numbers on the screen. And it just so happens that you guys kind of made the same allegiance about 20, 30 years ago to a particular group that nobody will hear about. And then you guys find that you kind of Venn diagram or Vesica Pisces in with groups that you both have relationships to that may be known by the population. What that means is they basically run in the same circles. That's what that means. And so you say, hey, I run trash. It's like, okay, hey, I run the tech industry. It's like, or I'm the biggest in the tech industry. And you say, hey, I'm the biggest in the entertainment industry. And say, hey, I'm at the highest levels of government. Or, like I actually make the decisions that influence that influence the heads of state to do what they do. Because make no mistake, there are people behind the scenes that manipulate events and manipulate influential people to in turn manipulate the heads of state to make decisions that they make. A lot of the decisions that heads of state make are pretty much they may be made to think that they have some autonomy in making those decisions, but trust me, there's somebody above them that's making sure that events happen in a particular way. Franklin Delano Roosevelt said almost almost 100 years ago, if something happens in politics, you can bet that it was meant to happen. This guy did not say that on accident, and everybody seems to forget that. Politics is a highly controlled sphere of influence in this world. So, on that note, what we want to say is that you also don't want to get overly obsessed with these groups and their symbols and everything, because getting overly obsessed with these groups means that we have subconsciously defaulted to them having power over us. And the truth is, they don't actually 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 have power over us. Excuse me. They manipulate us into believing that we don't have any power of our own and that they have power over us. It's a big scam. The truth of the matter is, you actually have the power. If you knew who you were, you would recognize your own power and you would step up and you would start creating what it is that you want to create in this world. You wouldn't have to fight the power, you wouldn't have to protest, you wouldn't have to resist, you wouldn't have to rebel at all. Meaning, you wouldn't have to do that as a form of creating true fundamental change. Even though I do think that these things are tools for change, they aren't fundamental change itself. Fundamental change is when the people undergo a fundamental shift in the way that they view themselves. Meaning, this is psychology, this is spirituality. Spirituality meaning the unseen force that animates all of life, basically. That's all spirituality is. It's not any particular thing. It's not chanting, it's not meditation, it's not these are just tools that are used in order to have a clearer awareness of the unseen reality that basically we all come from, and that animates our bodies. So that's basically it. So the point was NPR, which is I listen to it every now and again, and it's nice to listen to. I don't believe everything that they say because of it's a version of events. It's the official version of events, and the official version of events has been proven to be a lie over and 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 over again. It may not be mainstream news. All 300 million, almost 400 million Americans may not have access to this information, or may not come across this information, or it may not be available to all 400 million Americans, but it certainly is true and it is real. And so when I see this article basically doing some high school shit, in high school when, somebody points something out, it's like, when this person does this, this is what it means. And oh my God, it's like Mean Girls. That's what the mainstream media and politics feels like these days. It feels like Mean Girls had, made love with with modern day wrestling. Like, meaning like WWE. Like, Mean Girls made love with WWE, and their baby is the mainstream media and contemporary politics. It's just like, it's so petty, it's so silly, there's so much showmanship and acting involved in it, and people are taking it seriously because there appear to be true ramifications in response to the decisions that people say they're going to make and the actions that people take. So that's why people take it so seriously, because it has actual influence in the world, or at least it appears to. And that's why people will take this article seriously, saying that an OK symbol is the symbol of hate. And what people don't understand is that it's like literal, like 1984 V for Vendetta shit, like right in your fucking face. And it's basically telling you, when NPR comes out with an article like that, it's basically telling you directly that it is your enemy, like, immediately, because the state trying to protect you and classifying, speech and classifying hand gestures is the state literally taking control through being politically correct. That's the state making its move. And people will blame this on Donald Trump and all that stuff, which I think is just fucking ridiculous. It's fucking ridiculous, dude. Politics doesn't work like that. The dude hasn't even been in office the full term, and you're going to blame all this on him. It's not, it doesn't make sense. A lot of the events that are playing out right now, what people need to understand about world events is that they are planned, especially, again, going back to FDR, they are planned decades in advance, at the very least 20 years in advance. What people don't understand is that the perpetual war that our country has been in for the past 20 years, meaning like ever since 9/11, if you read the Project for the New American Century, there was a plan to invade these places. And in this document, it was said some kind of traumatic event needs to happen in order to justify our entry into these countries and our takeover of these countries. Nothing like that had ever happened yet. One in the PNAC, which is the nickname for it. It was released. It was released, and then a year later, 9/11 happened. Now, to write out this document, which I don't remember how many pages it was, but it was a lot of pages, to write out this document and plan out the details of this document took some fucking time. Before that, it took people actually saying, "Hey, this needs to happen. This needs to, do this. This needs to do that." It took people discussing this over a period of many years. People who, somebody has an idea, and you're looking for people who you can have allies with in order to, you know, get the support you need in order to move it forward. That takes years before this document was even written. And before this document was even written, there were sentiments like this in politics before it was even written. And people are like, well, how can that be? How can that be? These are just people that represent our states. There are people in politics, in every institution of society, that have an allegiance to a secret group. And it's not to be all super conspiracy theory, which is, a term coined by the CIA in order to, get people to immediately shut their brains off to anything outside of the conditioned reality. But it's to just simply state the reality that there are some people that don't have allegiance to the people, and they have secret oaths and secret meetings. This is what JFK was talking about. He was referring to this. It's funny how the truth can be right in your face, and then people just refuse to admit it. And but on top of that, even though you know the Big Daddy state is trying to promote this 1984 V for Vendetta reality, we can't get overly you can't get over meaning you can't get overly obsessed about these symbols and these secret societies, because it just doesn't really lead anywhere ultimately. It's like, the thing about it is, that's what you start to learn. Trust me, I've been looking into this stuff for over 20 years. And what you find is that these symbols are what they have made it mean to them. Meaning, nothing really means anything. The only time that it means something is if you repeat it over and over and over and over again, and then associate it with something else. It's basic classical conditioning, which is hypnosis, classical conditioning, and the other kind of conditioning, I can't remember the name of it. Operant conditioning, yeah. These are kinds of hypnosis. That's what they are. Just period. So these secret societies, they'll use a pentagram, but the pentagram is not an evil symbol at all. It's like this. It's a product of geometry, and in some circles, it literally represents the human body. It literally represents the human being, and when it's turned up face, meaning like the point is facing up, it means that the human being is in balance, and that it is in touch with higher consciousness, because the point facing upward, that one point represents the head, the sides represent the arms, and the two bottom points represent the legs. When it's turned upside down, this is when the human being's mind is focused in lower consciousness. And the thing is, these symbols were used in ancient times, and our human civilization is much older than we're being told. And these symbols, like the pentagram, are ancient, and they represented different things in ancient times. I'm talking about before 10,000 years ago. In ancient times, these symbols meant something, even after that, but definitely before that. These are ancient fucking symbols. And so basically what happened was, there was an entire campaign to get humanity to forget its ancient roots, and over many millennia, and it's worked. And so now this campaign is at a point where it's literally mercilessly using these symbols to manipulate the ancient memory in humanity. That's basically what it is. So when you see a pentagram up, facing up or even facing down, it triggers something in your deep ancient psychology. Something about you knows what that is. You don't know what it is on the conscious level, but you know what it is on the subconscious and even the unconscious level. These deep, this deep ancient level where your ancestors used this symbol and knew exactly what it was, but you don't know exactly what it means, but it resonates with you. And because you don't know what it means, and because you can't make the darkness conscious, as Carl Jung would say, it manipulates you from behind the scenes. It puppet strings you from behind the scenes. It's actually evil genius magic, really. So I just want I just wanted to make that clear to everyone that, these don't allow don't allow the quote unquote powers that be. I hate to call them that, but that's pretty much what they are. They're manipulators to dominate your psychology or dominate your spirituality, because that is the game. That is the conspiracy. The conspiracy is the ultimate conspiracy. You want to know what the ultimate conspiracy is? The ultimate conspiracy is is that you are a very powerful being. When you recognize your power, you will be able to move mountains, like literally. Literally, like that power is literally within you. Would you, if you understood, if you were empowered, would you be able to do it that day? Probably not. But the truth of the matter is, you have the ability to tap into realize who you are and to tap into your own spirit. Once you tap into your own spirit, you recognize your power, and you can recognize any attempt to manipulate you. The reason why a lot of humans don't recognize attempts to manipulate them is because their identity is rooted in the physical body, in the emotions, and in the thoughts that they think every day. Once you recognize that you are not the physical body, that you are not your emotions, and that you are not that you are not your thoughts that you have every day, then you can begin to transcend that reality and say, well, who am I? And continue to ask yourself that question. Soon, you'll start to recognize that the manipulation is coming from you absolutely needing to identify with the body, the emotions, or your thoughts. Like, the manipulation comes from there. If you don't identify with any of those things, or if you understand that identifying with those things is folly, then seeing the manipulation becomes very clear. Because a lot of the manipulation, like going to college and getting a job and then having a family, it's fear of death, basically. Fear of physical death, fear of social death. That's it. If you think that you're the body, of course you'd be afraid of death. Of course. You see people die. You see hundreds of thousands of simulated murders over your lifetime through entertainment, and the body stops moving. That means that person lost. That person fucked up. That person is done. That person is gone. But that's just a physical body. What was animating that physical body? That's closer to who you are. What was animating that physical body? You understand? So this is where the manipulation comes from. And so I'm done. And that's what I wanted you to know. I know I was kind of talking all over the place, or maybe I could have been talking all over the place. I tend to just get an emotion about something and then just talk about it. And that's what creates some of my most free-flowing content. So anyway, if you have any comments or questions about this, I know this is maybe a little bit more of a controversial topic. But those that understand what I'm talking about will understand what I'm talking about, and those that don't. And I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you tuning in, and stay tuned for the next episode. If you're seeing this on YouTube, subscribe, hit the bell. If you're getting this on Apple, subscribe to the podcast on Apple. If you're seeing this on Google, subscribe to the podcast on Google. Subscribe to the podcast on Anchor. Wherever you're seeing this, subscribe. And I guarantee you that I don't know what I'm going to talk about, but once I start talking about it, I know what I'm talking about.